Hello everyone, welcome to IS Baba's 60 days rapid revision series for Prelims 2022. This is day 24 and we take up environment and ecology. So these are the topics we are going to discuss, and before going to that, we have some doubts to be cleared. So here it is, like one was the financial inclusion index. So whether it is RBI or the Department of Financial Services. So here we have the RBI website and it says that the RBI is going to come up with the financial inclusion index from 2021. And here I have the Department of Financial Services press statement, and it says that from 2019, so we are going to conceptualize the financial inclusion index. So in that context, we can say this is the one which has conceptualized, that is Department of Financial Services has conceptualized and the RBI is releasing. And then come to next, the positive Indian Ocean dipole. So one question was like, when the positive Indian Ocean dipole is very similar to El Nino, that means it brings the descending wind here. So how it can be beneficial for Indian monsoon? So here it is like we have forgotten to see the other side. So here the Indian Ocean dipole brings in the warm wet climate with the moist air. So this moist air is the one which will enter into the Indian subcontinent during the monsoons, that too during the southwest monsoons. So if there are too much of moisture here, that will be advantageous for India. But if we have monsoon here, it will not be that advantageous for India. So this is how. Then come to next, the Brahmani and Baitarani rivers. So here the map was misplaced. So when we move from north, Baitarani comes first and then comes Brahmani river. Then Chikakol. So although Chikakol was ruled by Kalinga kings or by the Gajapati rulers for more than 1000 years, so it is not in Odisha, so it is in Andhra Pradesh. So border district between the Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. So this we will correct. It is also called as Uttarandhra or Kaling Andhra. Then come to next, the Environment Protection Act. So this act was enacted in the aftermath of the Bhopal gas tragedy 1984, and some of the main provisions of this act was to prohibit discharge of environmental pollutants, prohibition against handling hazardous substances. Then any person may file a complaint with the court alleging an offense under the act. So any person can file a complaint. If I see an environmental damage, I can file a complaint. So this is called the citizen suit, and it also comes with a clause like, so if I am going to complain, so I will have to give a 60 days prior notice and then I have to complain. And then the act empowers the center to take all such measures as it deems necessary. So here a open power is given by the act to the central government to take any action for that matter for controlling the destruction of environment. So here we would like to memorize that the Environment Protection Act came after the Air Pollution Prevention and Control Act and Water Pollution Prevention of Control Act. So here those air pollution and water pollution acts, so they were not being able to curb the Bhopal gas tragedy. So that is why a more stringent law was needed, and that is why the act came into picture. So remember that. And then come to next, some of the rules that are implemented by this EPA is like the rules 1989 for regulating the GM crops. So GM crops comes under the EPA, and then EIA rules, so this also comes there. And then eco-sensitive zones or areas, so they are also recognized by EPA. Then the CRZ, the coastal regulation zones, so they are also recognized. Okay, so also remember the Shailesh Nayak committee under which the CRZ rules will come in. Then come to next, the National Green Tribunals. So National Green Tribunals were formed under the NGT Act 2010. So it is a statutory body, and the structure of the tribunal, so one chairperson will be there and then judicial and expert members. So just like any other tribunal, it has both judicial and non-judicial members. And also there should be minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20 full-time judicial as well as expert members. So remember the minimum and maximum, there is no fixed number as such. Then the chairperson is appointed by central government in accordance with the Chief Justice of India. So here the government has to consult CJI before appointment. Then a selection committee is formed to appoint other judicial members and experts. So other members are selected by the selection committee. Then the National Green Tribunal, so that will deal with the following laws, that is the Water Pollution Prevention of Control Act, and then Water Cess Act, Forest Conservation Act, then Air Prevention Act, Environmental Protection Act, then Public Liability Insurance Act, and then Biological Diversity Acts. So these are some of the acts which come under the jurisdiction of NGTs. Then the Wildlife Protection Act. So here the Wildlife Protection Act, so this was established in the aftermath of the CITES and the Washington Convention. So the establishment of CITES, that gave awareness to curb the destruction of wildlife. So that is why the act came, and this act provides the statutory status or the origin to three bodies, that is the Central Zoo Authority, So that authority which looks into the maintenance of all those zoos. And then the National Board for Wildlife. So this is one of the most powerful bodies. It is headed by the Prime Minister himself, and this body goes for demarcating a national park and the wildlife sanctuaries and others. Okay. So this is one of the powerful bodies in environment and ecology. And then the National Tiger Conservation Authority. So this authority, NTCA, so that will give authorization to recognize any reserve as a tiger reserve. So for the Project Tiger, this was being introduced. And then the act also created 6 schedules. So we have 6 schedules. So first 4 schedules, they will deal with the animals which are endangered, and threatened, vulnerable, so all those. Okay. And then the 5th schedule, so that will deal with those animals which are in excess. So we can declare any animal as vermin under the 5th schedule. And then the 6th schedule, that contains the banned plants. Friends, all these schedules have already been asked by UPSC in prelims, but now in the 2022, so the Wildlife Protection Act is going to be amended. So the Wildlife Protection Act Amendment Bill 2021 is already in Parliament. So if it is enacted, so now we will not be having 6 schedules, we will be having only 4 schedules. So remember that and update accordingly. And then we have the National Biodiversity Act. So here, whenever we have a very comprehensive Wildlife Protection Act, then what was the need of the National Biodiversity Act? So this Biodiversity Act, it will not deal with the prevention or preservation or conservation, or it will not prescribe any punishments for poaching or others. So it is having a different domain. So it is like it will only preserve the knowledge and the heritage, and it is also dealing with the free and fair sharing of the knowledge and heritage. Okay. So it is the aesthetic, cultural and philosophical part of environment and wildlife. So that is being taken into consideration by this. So if someone is hindered, or if someone is stopped by accessing to the knowledge, so then this law will come into picture. And this law, it will also establish the National Biodiversity Authority or the State Biodiversity Boards. So these two, so they will look into the free access and benefit sharing and fair sharing of the knowledge that is obtained from the biodiversity and the heritage that the biodiversity carries. Then come to next, the Forest Rights Act and the Forest Conservation Act. So here, earlier we had Indian Forest Act. So Indian Forest Act that was established during the British times, and then came the 1927 Indian Forest Act. So that declared and defined many definitions regarding the forests. And later, despite of the presence of Indian Forests Act, so we were not having a proper forest rights for the tribal people. So that is why the Forest Rights Act was established. So that was called as Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act. So this act, it deals only to the scheduled tribes and other forest dwellers. So it will not deal with those forests which are used for non-forest purposes, those forests where village is set up, those forests where a railway track is set up. So that will not come under this purview. And here, this Forest Rights Act is capable of empowering local self-governments among the tribal people, and then conservation and management of the natural resources. So whenever the forest rights is being declared, so it is declared in such a way that those people will not destroy that environment. And then rehabilitation of the displaced tribes. So this is also possible under the Forest Rights Act. So but obvious, it is a welfare scheme for the tribal people. And then the Forest Conservation Act. So this act, so that will give the title and scope for various usages and non-usages inside the forest. So this is one act which will clearly define what is a forest activity and what is the non-forest activity. So here, some of the non-forest activities like the growth of tea, coffee, spices, and agriculture of rubber, palm, then growth of oil-bearing plants and the medicinal plants. So agriculture of all these are being considered as non-forest activities. So in that cases, so whichever are non-forest activities, so they are curbed, and whichever are defined as the forest activities, so they are left unstopped if they are being taken up inside a forest. So this is all about the Forest Conservation Act. Apart from this, we also have the Compensatory Afforestation Funds Act. So that will deal with the compensatory afforestation. So that will take up on any other day. Then Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. So again we have the National Biodiversity Act. Then we have the Wildlife Protection Act. But why this? So this is not only for the wildlife, it also includes the pet animals also. So that is why we cannot mete out cruelty even against our pet animals. So that is the aim of this act, and here it prevents the infliction of unnecessary pain or suffering on animals. And the act establishes the Animal Welfare Board of India. So this is the one, and we can see the Animal Welfare Board of India is different from the National Board for Wildlife, and this was headquartered in Chennai and now it is being shifted. So here the act discusses different forms of cruelty, exceptions to the cruelty and killing of suffering animals. So here in case of sacrifices, some exemption is being given, or might be if the animal is already suffering, that can be killed. So such exemptions are also being discussed here. Then come to next, UNFCCC and UNEP. So United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So that was established in the 1992 Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit. So here in the same Rio Summit, we can also remember that the Convention on Biodiversity, that is CBD, and the UNCCD, that is UN Convention to Combat Desertification, and Agenda 21. So they all came into picture in this same. So remember, UNFCCC was established in the Rio Summit. So friends, here the static part is not that important for us, but the dynamic one. So you will go to the UNFCCC website and you will see what are the new things that are being taken up by UNFCCC right now. Okay, so before going to exam hall, say by the May 15th or so, make sure that you will revise important websites like UNFCCC, UNEP and others. So here we have some of the important issues like MNASDW, then Paris Agreement implementation, and then gender balance and climate change. So all these are being taken up. Any one which is important and which is having catchy jargons, so make sure that you will update them. So questions directly, they'll come from the websites. Then come to next, UNEP. So here we have the UNEP website, and UNEP is already ready with the Stockholm Plus 50 program. And also UNEP launches new Sustainable Land Use Finance Impact Directory. So mark this as important and put it in your notes, and also update that regularly. And then a brief account of UNEP. So it was established in the 1972 Stockholm Summit. So this is 20 years before the UNFCCC. Okay, so it was one of the first summits for the environment. And then UNEP also engages in development of many other conventions like the Minamata Convention for Methyl Mercury, and then UN Convention on Biological Diversity, that is CBD, then the SIDES program, the Washington Convention, then Basel Convention against dumping of hazardous wastes, and then Stockholm Convention against the persistent organic chemicals, and then the Rotterdam Convention. So this is for the trade of hazardous chemicals, and then the Montreal Protocol for ozone, and also Vienna Convention for the same ozone depletion, and then Convention on Migratory Species, CMS, and then the Tehran Convention, Bamako Convention, then Carpathian Convention, and Climate Clean Air Coalition. So your assignment, go and see what all these are dealing with. Okay, so these are the ones which are looked after by UNEP. Then come to next, the CTCN. So here we can see how the question will be asked directly. So if you had gone through the United Nations Climate Technology Center and Network website, so you would have got the carbon common metric. So this was asked by 2021 prelims paper. So make sure that such ones you will not leave. So a small hard work can fetch you a lot of marks. Then come to next, IUCN. So IUCN, World Wildlife Fund. So they are NGOs, they are not at all related to any of the United Nations body. Now IUCN, so that was established as an NGO, and its first name was IUPN, that is International Union for Protection of Nature, and this IUCN comes up with the red list of threatened species, or the red data book. And then IUCN also played a huge role in formation of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, and the SITES, and then World Heritage Convention, and also the CBD. And then UNEP, World Wildlife Fund, and the IUCN, so all together they publish the World Conservation Strategy. So mark it as important. And then United Nations has granted official observer status to IUCN. So this is one of the achievement. So any NGO getting observer status, that means they can attend the UN General Assembly meetings. And then so here it is the website of the IUCN. So go through every tab and see what the IUCN is doing, and also have a glance over these. That means IUCN is not only working on the environment, it is also working towards the gender, global policies, science and economics, so water. So all these are the areas of functioning of the IUCN. So go to every tab and have a note of that. Then come to next, World Wildlife Fund. So World Wildlife Fund, it is also an NGO. So this also has many achievements and many reports into its credit. So the Living Planet report, the famous one, so it is being released by the World Wildlife Fund, and the Earth Hour program. So this Earth Hour is celebrated for 1 hour in every year, so that we will switch off all the lights and save energy for that, and we also create awareness. So that was the initiative of World Wildlife Fund. So this was already asked by UPSC and prelims. Then the debt for nature swaps. So it is like if a nation is having any debt, maybe in the World Bank, the IMF or maybe any other institutions. And if that nation comes up with any environmental friendly activities, so as a counter for that, so the debts will be waived. Okay, so that debt will be swapped. So it is like it is enticement or encouragement for the environmental friendly programs by saying that we are waiving your loans. Then the Marine Stewardship Council. So it is an independent not-for-profit organization which sets a standard for sustainable fishing. So for this also World Wildlife Fund. So it is active. And then go through the website of the World Wildlife Fund and see the work it is doing. So it is doing some work on the dugong, then the tigers, and on the Ukraine war it is coming up with some reports. So the bisons and how they help in restore grasslands. Birdlife International and Conservation International. So Birdlife International is a global partnership for conservation of the birds, and it is the world's largest conservation partnership for the conservation of birds and their habitats. And it was earlier known as International Committee for Birds Preservation. So the earlier name, remember that. Then it publishes a quarterly magazine, the World Bird Watch. Then it is the official red list authority of birds for the IUCN. So whatever red list of birds are being given in IUCN, so it has been contributed by the Birdlife International. And it also publishes the important bird areas. So the important bird areas or the key bird areas, so all are the works of Birdlife International. So here remember the World Bird Watch, then the Red List Authority for Birds, then come to next the Conservation International. So it is formally committed to the protection of biodiversity hotspots. So we discussed earlier also Conservation International. So it has recognized some 36 biodiversity hotspots and it is indulged in the conservation of those. And then the model of protecting hotspots became a key way for organization to conserve the nature. So this is one of the important works of Conservation International. So after that it didn't come to the news so much, but however, so we have a website of this. So go to that and see, like it is analyzing on the IPCC reports that was out recently. So have a glance over that again. Then come to next BNHS and the Wildlife Trust of India. So BNHS, it is one of the oldest organizations in India and it was founded in 1883, long back, and it publishes the Journal of the Bombay Natural History Society. So anyway we can guess it even if it comes in the exam. And then the National Dragonfly Festival. So this is the work of the BNHS. So the BNHS has been organizing the festival in association with the World Wildlife Fund India, then UNDP and UNEP and the National Biodiversity Board of India. So remember all these. And then one more work is the Asian Waterbird Census. So in India, the Asian Waterbird Census is undertaken by the BNHS, so with the help of Wetlands International. So these are the works of BNHS. Then come to next, the Wildlife Trust of India. So it is a registered charity in India. So it is registered as the Charitables Act. Then the WTI currently focuses its resources on 6 priority landscapes, that is Northeast, Western Himalayas, Terai, then Southern Ghats, and then the Central India and terrestrial ecosystem. So it is also concentrating on some of the hotspots. Then one of its project is to protect the Sarus crane. So mark this Sarus crane and do some research on that. Then the Center for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation is a wildlife care facility that is run by the Wildlife Trust of India. So remember, the Center for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation is run by the Wildlife Trust of India. Then come to next, Kyoto Protocol. So we know that Kyoto Protocol is a legally binding agreement and only the members of UNFCCC can become the members. But obvious, and the duration of Kyoto Protocol was 2008 to 2012. So here we can remember the Kyoto Protocol was proposed long back in the 1997 UNFCCC summit, but till 2005, so it was not ratified by many people, and in 2005 many of them ratified, and from 2008 to till 2012 it came into picture. Then India and the Kyoto Protocol. So India was exempted from legally binding commitments on the greenhouse gas emissions. So India was not having any targets there, and India emphasized on the differentiation between developed and developing nations. So all India wanted was like give some concession for developing nations to develop first. After that we will take up the curbing of greenhouse gases, and India was a non-Annex 1 countries. So that means Annex 1 is the annex of developed countries. So here we have a brief discussion on the annexes. Friends, many times articles will carry these, so make sure that you will have a clarity here. Annex 1 means it is the industrialized countries, but here in these industrialized countries, so not many agreed to the Kyoto Protocol. So many left out of this annex. So that's why they created one more annex, that is Annex B. So it is those countries who have agreed and who have the target of the Kyoto Protocol. And then we have the non-annex one, so it is consisting of the developing countries. And then we have one more annex, that is SIDS, that is small island developed states. So the small islands like the French Polynesia, Oceania and other island nations, so they are part of this group. Then come to next, the Glasgow summit. So here inside the Glasgow summit, we also remember the net zero emission and the global methane pledge and the global forest declaration. So these were the important topics that were discussed in the Glasgow summit. And what India it pledged for the Glasgow summit. So this is the Panchamrut that the Prime Minister he pledged. So here it is, India will reach its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatts. So India had earlier promised 450 gigawatts and now it increased to 500 gigawatts by 2030. Then India will meet 50% of its energy requirement from the renewable energy by 2030. So earlier 40% was promised, that was increased to 50%. So earlier whatever we promised, so all those was in the Paris Summit 2015. So now we are studying this in comparison to the 2015 pledge that we made. Then India will reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons from now onwards until 2030. Then by 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by less than 45%. And then by the year 2070, India will achieve the target of net zero emission. So we know that the treaty was for 2050 and we agreed for 2070. Then come to next, the sky glow or the light pollution. So as the word suggests, sky glow means so the light pollution, increasing urbanization and installation of new street lights, security floodlights and outdoor ornamental lighting have all contributed to the sky glow. So here, so what is sky glow? Sky glow is an omnipresent sheet of light across the night sky in and around the cities that can block all but the very brightest stars from the view. So it is like whenever we have the light all around, so we can not only see the stars, even the brightest star can go blurred. So that is the condition of this sky glow. So remember, even the brightest stars we cannot see if there is the extreme sky glow. Now, whenever we discuss about the sky glow, the natural component of sky glow, so that has to be studied. So here it is, the sunlight reflected off the moon and earth, and then the faint air glow in the upper atmosphere, say for example a low grade aurora, and then the sunlight reflected off interplanetary dust. So not only moon, the interplanetary dust, so they will also reflect the light. Then starlight that is scattered, and then the unresolved stars and the nebulae. So all these are the natural causes, but obvious we have several anthropogenic causes as well. Then Minervarya Pentali. So here this is a frog species that was being discovered. Minervarya Pentali was discovered from the Western Ghats biodiversity hotspot at multiple localities in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Then this new species is endemic to the southern Western Ghats. Then this species is also among the smallest known Minervarya frogs. So Minervarya is a genus and this is the smallest one among that genus. And this genus, it belongs to the family Dicroglossidae. So remember this. Then Minervarya Sahyadris is a species of frog that is also endemic to Western Ghats. So Sahyadri, we can track it here. And also Pentalis. So it is Pental. So he was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, that is Deepak Pental. So that's why in his name, to the credit of him, so this was given. And then the IUCN status of Minervarya Pentali is endangered. So mark these as important ones. Then come to next, the Karez system of irrigation. So Karez, being one of the types of water management and irrigation system in Afghanistan, is under threat due to the resurgent Taliban rule. So here how that happens? So here we have like the water's slope down the potential, so that is being used off here, and whenever the water is flowing underground with its own potential, so we are constructing some tunnels, and in these tunnels we are fetching the water, and we can also have some vertical access shafts, so if we want the water for domestic use also. So this is how the Karez system works. So here what are the advantage of these? So it is like they are energy efficient and green since they use the force of gravity. So the flow of water is along the force of gravity. Then it has its origin in Persia and later it spread to Arab, Turkey and others. Then the wastewater is never mixed with the drinking water. Okay, so this is one more advantage. Then there is no depletion of aquifer since excessive use is impossible. So we cannot suck up the excessive water because we are not using any motors there. Then its maintenance cost is also low. Then the first Karez system in India was built in the city of Bidar of Karnataka. So mark it as important. So we also have this Karez system. So Bahmani Sultan Ahmad Shah Wali, so he built it. So remember the historical fact as well. Then come to next, slender lories. So environmentalists, they demanded Tamil Nadu's Kadavur Reserve Forest to be declared as wildlife sanctuary in order to conserve slender lories. So remember the scientific name, Loris tardigradus. So here this wildlife sanctuary is declared not for the protecting of ecosystem but to protect any wildlife that is being threatened. Then it is secretive and has nocturnal habits. So this is a nocturnal animal. It comes out only during night times. Then it usually travels from the canopy of one tree to another. So it is tree dwelling and they are fond of lantana berries and also eat insects, lizards and others. So a omnivorous animal, and then they play a key role in controlling agricultural crops and pests. So they can also help in agriculture as well. Then come to the last part. Friends, it is very disheartening to know that the current generation is growing more and more myopic. That is me, my family, my husband or my wife, so my children. So this is overpowering the feeling of my community, my nation, my humanity and my world. So if that myopism is rid off and if we cultivate more and more broad-heartedness, so but obvious we can move forward and we can make the world a better place to live in. Okay, so such personalities which think about the humanity as a whole, so they will be truly adored, and if everyone in the society, if they cultivate, so that society will no less be a heaven. So let us move towards such a society. Do it. All the very best. Good luck, friends.